first parts, we can go ahead and probably get
Okay.
started.
All right, I call this meeting to order at 5:32 PM on February 24th, 2016. First order of business, roll call in attendance, Dr. Kathleen Barlow.
Here.
Matt Brown. Joey Bryant.
Here.
John Deehan.
Present.
Gary Epp. Here. Jessica Evenson.
Here.
Dr. Serafini. Trey Justin.
Here.
Robert Lynn. Richard Miller.
Here.
Dr. Todd Shiver.
Here.
Renee Skiles.
Here.
Patrick Stanton. Ian Sullivan.
Here.
Zachary Weiner.
Here.
All right, moving to agenda approval. Moving into agenda approval, we take a moment to review the agenda.
So this is an all.
I mean, we can.
We just move to approve the agenda for February 24th, 2016. Is there a second? Matt seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Vote carries. Moving to item 4, approval of the minutes.
She is gonna be.
February 17th, 2016. Please take a moment to review the
They
minutes.
may have questions that she'll have answers, so yeah, I don't know.
Is this similar setup for luncheons?
Ms. Stevenson moves to approve the approval of the minutes for February 17th, 2016. Is there a second? Richard seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Vote carries. Moving to item 5, report. I don't have a report at this time. Joe?
The only piece I do have to report is we did get, for next quarter, official approval for Rachel Knight to be joining the committee, so her letter has been drafted and sent, so she is all set.
Thank you. Seeing no other reports. Moving to section 6, public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? Seeing none, moving into section 7, old business, supplemental friend request 1615 Baton Death March Memorial in the amount of $3,070. Discussion needed now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Can you hear us? Maybe. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Fantastic. Yes, we can.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. For sure. Okay, thanks, Ashley.
Thank you.
We're in the middle right now. They're going through a supplemental funding request, and then we'll get to the presentation, so you're welcome to join us from the side.
Great, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Moving back, we're on supplemental friend request 1615 Baton Death March Memorial in the amount of $3,070. Discussion needed now. Any questions or deliberation at this time?
Oh, you go first.
I was just wondering if we could pull up, do we have their presentation from last week that had a more detailed breakdown of their budget?
Maybe. Since we're not on the other computer, maybe not. Yes. I don't believe I have it. I think it was just sent to Andy.
I have a hard copy if that helps at all.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I thought that is a more detailed one that I was.
Oh, about like the room rates? Is that the one you were talking about?
Well, they just had a breakdown of what they were spending on,
Like within the presentation?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get a PowerPoint.
Hmm.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Second.
John, do you have a question?
Oh, no, you can go, I can go after you.
I just don't, I don't know if Nick or anyone can answer this. So for the cadre one, since it's not a student, would we typically fund that? Or would that be like a professor going that we would not fund?
We would typically not fund the cadre or a non-student that is attending the trip, so that's something we should take into consideration.
Okay.
Sure. For the
sake of being uniform and fair with other groups, I don't think that it would be fair of us to fund their food as well. I don't think we fund food very often for many groups, so just taking pointing that out.
Another
Dr.
comment on that. There was one request I remember last year that was a military group that was going to do some really physical activity that we did fund food for because it was like, they need to eat a bunch of food to be able to do.
Calories.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's not unprecedented, but you're right, it is very unusual, so just to set that precedent, yeah.
On that similar note, yeah, it is something that can be done. We would make an exception from our general procedures. The other part is, while that's on there, and it's included in the $6,570 total, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the S&A money would be going to, since there's the other pieces
Sure.
of that. So just to keep that in mind as well.
Don't they also, aren't they having 5 rooms for the 7 people that are going?
Can anybody understand? or-
What's
I
here?
spoke with Hauke about that, and one of them is a girl, correct? That's going to
One
guys,
is a
and
girl.
then, I mean, you gotta look at it, they're going down to do a 28-mile march. This isn't like a day at the spa, so like, I talked to Hauke about, cramming them in smaller rooms, that's just like inconvenient for a couple nights. I feel like they're already down there making enough sacrifice, so I didn't see the value in Xing off one room.
I think the only reason that, at least personally, to X out the room was just because one of the rooms was for the cadre person. So we could take it off to 4 rooms if we weren't gonna fund that position, from what I recall from last week.
Is that what you're
That was roughly what I was gonna say, if I remember correctly from that, is there were 5 rooms. One was for the cadre, one was for the female participant, and the other 3 rooms were for, I believe, the other 6 participants.
So we would take that 765, and that's for 5 rooms.
Yeah.
So
I do the math for that.
765
There's a few
divided by
calculators.
5. So that's $153 a room, so we just minus 153 from that amount then?
Address the gallery. Was that airfare also including for the cadre member, or is that just for student airfare?
It is with the cadre member.
Cadre expense. So that was for 6.
Just as a point of hopefully clarifying, it may be easier simply since it's all for all the individuals that you look at the total number of $6,570 and divide that by the number of participants instead of doing it individually for each of the expenses and removing one person.
But the cadre doesn't register.
Yeah, so we're just gonna say minus the registration piece, right? Because cadre doesn't register.
Well, and that's where it'd be the clarification, because I don't know, I need to know they're bringing 2 alternatives as well, 2 alternates, I don't know if they are needed to register or not.
That's
Yeah.
what you're asking.
The cadre does not register,
Okay.
and the 2 alternates do. They'll be with us running.
So that registration is only for the people competing?
Correct, it's for the 7 of us competing. In order to get the full funding, we had to have at least 7. That's why we picked 7. But for the team, for the Baton Death March, you needed 5 for a group, and then we have 2 alternates that will be running alongside us.
Well, Joey, then rather than, going piece by piece, would it make sense to just take the 3,070, you divided that by 7 people, that's 438 a person, would it be fine to just give an estimate, knock off something close to that number, because we can't tell them how to spend the money? Okay.
But we can't tell them how to collect it, correct? Because
We-
we don't have to reimburse the cadre.
Well, and that's what I would say, we can't tell them how to spend it.
Right.
The committee could choose to do it that way, it's up to the committee on what we would like to allocate. Again, it may not be an exact because the registration piece on there, with it. However, while we can't tell them what to spend, yeah, they would be able to use S&A funds to pay for any of the cadre's portion of it.
Would or would not?
Would not.
Oh,
vehicle rental price changes depending on whether or not the cadre.
No.
No.
So you could just take off $500 or something. It's airfare and lodging for the cadre and fund the rest.
Well, I was gonna make it easy and say, if we took the 3,070 over 7 students, or 7 individuals, that's roughly 438 a person. If you took that from 3,070, it's 2632. That seems easier than a 500.
Is that a motion?
No, so yeah, with that,
You want to do that? Or the
As-
registration?
what do you mean?
Does the registration doesn't include the,
Got it.
okay.
Oh, so they tried
Subtract it out,
So
add
add
it back in.
another $50 to that.
Good thinking.
Okay, so yeah, so adding 50 to 2632 is 2682. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve supplemental funding request 1615 Baton Death March in the amount of $2,682.
Motion has been made, is there a second? Ms. Stevenson seconds, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor in the amount of $2,682? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Vote carries with 1 abstention. Baton Death March has been approved in the amount of $2,682. Moving to section 8, new business, base funding program review, university centers and CC relations.
Okay, that's fine.
I can figure it out. That's for you.
Doesn't matter to me. So, welcome and thank you for having me here tonight. I'm Melanie Palm. I'm the Executive Director for Extended Learning, which includes the university centers. I also have continuing ed and Running Start. But the funding that you provide to us is for the university center students. The main funding for us, we cover this side. You'll hear from Ashley Norris in a few minutes. We work very closely together. But Ashley gets funding for the west side, which are the 3 larger centers that we have. I get most of the funding for the east side, and then I also do some other general funding through S&A money to the students who's across all centers. So, next slide. How are we funded? We started receiving funding in 2010. We received a total of $73,000. In 2014, that was reduced to $62,000, and then last year with the cut, we received $6,385 total. Student employees, we currently employ 9 students across all centers. So we have 2 at each of our 3 largest centers, Des Moines, Linwood, and Pierce. And then we have 1 student employee in Yakima, Wenatchee, and Moses Lake. Currently, we're paying them $12 an hour. In 2010, we were paying them $10 an hour. The last year or 2, we just haven't been able to get student employees because they don't want to work for $10 an hour. These are non-traditional students. They're giving up other things to come and work for us and help supplement their education. So that's kind of the competition we're facing. We're also facing, for Ashley on the west side market. So $10 an hour, they're getting paid more at other locations, at other jobs. Good. So what kind of student services and events and CWU support do we provide? My particular budget provides for, this is a case where we do provide food for our new student orientations. Orientations at the centers, particularly at the west side, can go 5-6 hours depending on when they start and what programs are participating. We do full orientations, we have registrars there, we have Ashley's wonderful student services are there, our staff is there, we have faculty advising, all those kinds of things, which creates a longer day. So the students are often taking a day off work to attend our new student orientations. We aren't providing lavish food. It's usually cookies and iced tea and that kind of thing, but even that, because we have contracts with the community colleges, we have to use their catering services, which are a little bit more spendy than they are here on campus. And so generally new student orientation food runs about $250 to $300 an event. We also provide at new student orientation, besides the food, we also provide peaches and a lot of materials that are passed out to students. We provide a simple CW lanyard, CW pens and things like that. Oftentimes for students, that's the only CW attire that they get, or logoed items that they get, because they don't have the bookstore to be able to go to. They do occasionally buy sweatshirts and that kind of thing from the bookstore with their own money, but any other kind of things that you might pick up while you're here on campus, they don't have at the centers. Events, we do welcome back events at all the East Side centers, so every fall, every quarter, we have some sort of welcome back kind of thing, whether that's just stop in and pick up your new student planner, which is a hugely popular item that we produce, or it's, grab an apple before you go to class. Those are the kinds of things we do. Come in, stop in, meet with your faculty advisor, etc. We have end-of-year celebrations that we sponsor. Ashley does a big, huge one on the west side. And at our east side centers, we do smaller ones. It might be going to a ball game and having a barbecue at the ball game. It might be just a reception kind of graduation event, celebration event, because all the students have to come to the main campus for their commencement. On the west side, they go to the Showwear Center, but here they come here. And then we host other student events. We recently had a mass incarceration event in Yakima. We had 35, a few outside people, but it was mainly students that, got to get out of class a little bit early to attend that event. So we're bringing those kind of events to campus. A couple of years ago, we did a domestic violence display, where we paid to have that come to campus, and students really engaged with that. Then for student support, we have the student planners, and this may sound kind of crazy, old-fashioned in the world of cell phones and smartphones, but these student planners, we order about 6,000 a year, and I'm out of student planners at every center right now. So they are wildly popular with the non-grad students. They come in, they ask for them, they start asking for them in April and May, saying, summer classes are coming up, do you have the planners in yet? So these are really popular planners. And a big chunk of our budget gets spent toward those. We also had student copiers at all centers. We have pulled them out. This last year, we pulled them out at some of our centers, not at all, because they weren't being used. So we were paying for copiers that over the course of a year, we might get $40 in nickels. So they just weren't being used. They were also primarily being used by the community college students because of where they were located versus our central students. So after much discussion and student feedback, we decided let's save the money on that, and we pulled them out. We still have them in Yakima, and I have one in Linwood. Those are the only two places we have them. The rest we've pulled out. And then we also have students that work in our front office. They're that first point of contact. Oftentimes when students come in, we're very thinly staffed, contrary to sometimes popular opinion at the centers. Our front office staff is very, very thin. And so we do have student employees there to help cover that, so the regular office staff person can go out and do other things. And honestly, I used to be the site manager in Yakima, and nobody talks to a student like another student. The students come in, they have questions. What's it really like at Central? Can I really finish my degree? How do you get through this class? How do I use Canvas? All those kinds of things. That student employee can help and communicate with them far better than this gray-haired lady can. Student input. For the east side, Ashley does her own student survey. Her group does their own student survey, but we model our survey off of theirs. So we really work hand in hand together with this. But we do send out a student survey to the East Side Center students, asking them what do they want, how do they want it, what kind of activities do they want, what are they interested in, what times of day would be amenable to them. Most of the classes start at 4 o'clock or later at a center because the students are non-trad again and working during the day. Would they be interested in doing something on a Saturday or a weekend? So those kinds of things are what we ask. Are they satisfied with the service that they're receiving? We do employee training. We're actually sending the student employees from Yakima, Wenatchee, and Moses Lake to campus for some of the Excel training, et cetera, student employee training that is happening on campus, and using S&A money to provide that transportation. These are not training programs that are delivered to the centers, and we're looking at trying to do something via ITV DE to the West Side centers. And then employee feedback, they always have thoughts and ideas from the students on what we could do better and how we could do it, what kind of programs they're interested in, how to deliver that. And then just student use, and that kind of, and demand, that kind of goes back to the student copier issue. The one in Yakima is heavily used, the one at Linwood is used somewhat, but the other centers, when we removed them, we didn't hear a peep. So, just kind of following that. And then our objectives are really with the students, employees. You know, Ashley has this great slide on learning objectives and things. And our programming is a little bit different, and how we use our students, the student employees are a little bit different. What we use our money for is a little bit different. But our objective really is to create a connection to Central, to create some affinity to CWU, because they don't have that in any other way. They aren't coming to campus. To create that pride, a couple years ago we bought the East Side centers, have a Wellington, so we have Wellington at many of our events now versus having to drive up. Can we please borrow? So we have our own. And then also really to develop a professional skill set. What does marketing look like? How do you know, what's the behavior or the expectations of working in a professional office? Many of them haven't done that, particularly at our East Side centers. Their training and their backgrounds are very different than being in a more professional setting and connecting with people in a different kind of way. And the students served, this kind of gives you an idea. We ordered 15,000 planners, they're all gone. 100 students for East Side Center events attended last year. We have about 175, 180 students at the center, so that's a pretty good response. 625 new students for new student orientation. It's across all centers. And then student support, you know, I just put that up there. You know, that's the number of students that we have at our center. So our student employees are reaching out to all of those and anyone that comes in, whether they're face-to-face, they're online. Even in Yakima, we serve a lot of Ellensburg students who stop in because that's where we're at and they can save themselves a trip. And then how do we connect to the central goals and objectives? Really, we're about access. That's the big one, is we want students to be successful. We want to support students in any way we can. We want them to be tied to Central and feel that they have a connection to Central. But we also want them to be successful. And sometimes that, for non-traditional students at these centers, that looks a little different than students here on campus because they are commuting. I've heard in the past, well, they could come to Ellensburg for this service or that service. Well, they've already driven 20 miles to get to Yakima. Now I want to go an additional 30 to come to here. So having some sort of student services and being able to provide that connection to them means a great deal to those students. And then, of course, we want to engage and make sure that engage those students, engage the faculty, engage the community with community outreach, things that we do, and be inclusive of everyone and where they come from. So that's my presentation. Questions? Yes?
What is a peachy?
Peachy? Seriously?
Yes.
Okay, it's a paper folder. It's like a paper folder with pockets you can put stuff in.
Okay.
So we put.
I've never heard
sorry.
of reference as a peachy.
Yeah, wow.
I still call them peaches. My kindergartner had it on his list for school that it says peachy.
Yeah.
I don't think they called them those in years.
They might, yeah. I don't know what they call them.
No.
I don't remember, I've never heard of it. Peachy.
Yeah, so, wow.
So you saw her.
That was an easy question, but yeah, it's a folder with pockets we put all the new student orientation materials in. And they often carry those and keep those with them and it's easily identifiable among the other stuff. Yes,
Do you provide any kind of tutoring services or?
my
How would
group
they
does
find
not. They would use tutoring service like the Writing Center, et cetera. They would either access that through online. On the west side, they do have Writing Center and tutoring services, but at the east side centers, they don't. Yes,
Do a lot of your students commute up here for our career fairs and whatnot?
no.
No, why
No.
not?
Oftentimes they're working, they have children coming up for a career fair. Now, if it's a specific, if they're a business major, they may come up for a college business fair. If they're an education major, they very likely will come to the education fair. Beyond that, general career fairs, general events, no, they don't. And
Okay.
oftentimes, even graduation, the graduation kickoff, where they sell caps and gowns and all that kind of stuff, that's offered from 1 to 5, Monday through Thursday. They're in classes starting at 4 o'clock, Monday through Thursday.
Sure.
So if they miss a class, they're missing an entire week oftentimes by coming to campus. Yes?
What's graduation timeline looking like for East Side students? I mean, is it 4 years, is it 2 years, do they come in with some experience?
It's about, depending on the program that they're in, if they're an ed program, it's about 2 years. Depending on the cohort, right now I have one in Yakima that's gonna go 3 years just because it's a double major. ITAM, individual studies or interdisciplinary studies, depends on the student, but they usually go straight through. Because those students rarely take summer off, so they go straight through. So it's usually about 7-8 quarters. And our students are transfer students. So they spend 2 years at the community college, they get their gen eds done, and they come to us to complete their majors. And that's true at all centers.
Seeing no additional questions, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Alright, moving into this base funding program review of the West Side Student Affairs.
Are you still there, Ashley?
Yes, I am. I just want to make sure can you all hear me okay, or am I too loud or too quiet?
I can hear you just fine. Can everyone else?
Okay.
Yep, you can hear, everyone can hear you.
Great, and if I do this, do you see it? Wait, hold on. Do you see that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, we're good, let's go, okay. Gotta love technology. So I'm Ashley Norris, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. And you may hear some repetition of some of the things I said, because me and Mel work very closely. We're very collaborative, and so my goal is to answer all those 9 questions. I have 9 slides for you, and hopefully they will be filled with lots of great information. So my first topic I wanted to address is our university goals and with our program goals. And so I scoured the CW website, and I really focused on the CW shared values. Those are the text print on student success, access, engagement, inclusiveness, and shared governance. I feel that we kind of support these ones the best, and that student success, we're always striving to create an inclusive environment where students can be successful. As Mel said, we do have a non-traditional student population, and so a typical schedule is very different from student to student, and we want to make sure they succeed no matter what, and so we try to practice presence and active listening, and that can be for in-person or our online students. We try to have as much access as possible. I'm a very reflective person, and so when I meet with students, I'm always trying to engage them in that process so they can really kind of see where their trajectory is and which experiences they need to gain from being on campus. And that definitely falls with our student leaders as well, reflecting on each of our different events, and that we're always having an educational aspect to each engagement. That's our primary goal, is to have events, and we call them passive displays, and we also have an online presence. I've gone through a lot of social justice training, and I try to train my student staff and the students I interact with on being inclusive, even to the smallest component of using inclusive language. I have a lot of things on my door and trying to training our staff just to create that message that this is a safe space for people to be themselves. And lastly, that shared governance, and that My door is always open. I have students, I have faculty, I have staff coming in and out, and we want them to be a part of our department because we are student life. We are the entire experience at the centers. We're always trying to include them in our decision-making process of what events we do. And also, myself and my pro staff have technology in our budget, iPads and iPhones, so that we can be accessible because we're traveling so much, and so we try to have a 24-hour turnaround for our communication. So what do? We do lots of things. We wear many different hats. These are all of the components of our department. We provide student leadership development, whether that be workshops or training. We are the liaisons between the Disability Support Services in Ellensburg. This was directly a need from our student population that they wanted a face-to-face person that they could talk with. We are part of the academic conduct review or any type of appeals. Myself and another pro staff are meeting with those students. We plan 3 quarterly events and 3 passive displays at each of our centers. So we have 3 centers that we focus on. We partner with our community college hosts. For example, the Edmonds Community College was having a leadership conference, a 1-day conference. My pro staff worked with the planners, and we were able to get 20 of our students to be able to attend because we weren't able to put on something as large, and they got a great experience in how to travel from one building to the other. We do assessment. We always reflect with our student leaders about what they thought was great, what they would change at each of our events. We also do an annual assessment each year. And then we provide club development and support, which entails assisting with club startup, any type of financial transactions. We provide workshops and trainings, and then we also support the advisors as well. So who is our student staff? It's a great picture of us at our annual retreat. We have 18 student employees. We call them the Campus Activities Team, otherwise known as the CATS. And we have 6 of those employees at each of the 3 centers. So we have a team of 6 at Linwood, a team of 6 at Des Moines, and a team of 6 at Pierce. We do not have a team at the Everett Center because it is a smaller campus. However, we always welcome our Everett students to our Linwood campus to any and all of our events. Similar to Mel, we did have a $10 minimum wage. With the increase in minimum wage in the Seattle area, I made the decision to increase that salary, and it has been great in retaining our student staff. And then lastly, we base this position on the learning objectives of Kouzes and Posner's the Leadership Challenge, which has a 5-step model: model the way, inspire the shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. Each of my student leaders has a workbook and also a student version of this book, and we try to implement that in our meetings, and when we do our planning, when we're role modeling on campus. And it's a model that has been researched and processed over the past 20 years, so it's pretty valid in its application. Next, how do we decide what programs and services we offer? So on the left, you can see the events and displays that we choose. So we choose to plan 3 events and 3 displays per quarter per campus, and we follow these 3 areas. Diversity and social justice, community engagement, which means community service, or working with an outside partner that does like servant leadership. And we have campus connections. That's all about campus resources, whether that be at the center, the community college, or in Ellensburg. And I actually designed this model because I'm all about servant leadership, and we use something pretty similar in my doctoral program. And then on the right, these are services that are a part of our department, so student leadership, club development, disability support services, academic conduct, and we do act as that referral agent for any students who are in distress. We have a lot of collaborators. We're all about working as a team, no matter the distance. So you can kind of see in this map of who our collaborators are. I wanted to make it all just on one slide, but there are a lot more. So career services, we work closely with them to provide workshops. Right now, the education fair is next week. I'm providing the minibus that is going from Pierce to Des Moines to Ellensburg. We have 23 students attending. We work closely with financial aid in that kind of student distress area. We also support, we have a scholarship workshop that I assist with kind of raffle items and food. I work closely with Joey for the student rights and responsibilities in the academic conduct area. We work with International Students Office for student employment and also educational opportunities. The Ellensburg Publicity Center, we do a lot of marketing with them, but we want a more professional look. We are the liaisons for disability support services. We act as a hearing officer for the appeals committee. We partner with CWU University for the graduate student affairs program to host interns, so that we are collaborating with our partners and also providing mentorship for future student affairs professionals. And then we also really like to connect with our local and national nonprofits. We host an annual volunteer nonprofit fair every year with about 20 to 30 vendors. And then lastly, our program goals. This is what we really strive to do: build campus community, engage with our students, plan events, and have them be strong role models in academics, in critical thinking, and their leadership skills. Who do we serve? So I try to do a rough estimate. We have 44 students who are registered with disability services. There are probably a lot more who are not registered and kind of wait until they're in a challenging situation to meet with myself or my other pro staff. You can see the math calculations of the average attendance. You can see that we have about 30 to 60 students per event. Times that by 3, times that by 3 per quarter. So a rough estimate would be about 270 to 540 students per quarter total on the west side. So that would be 3 centers. For the average, for the appeals process, between 5 and 9 students for the entire west side. And we do have a pretty active social media at CWU West Side, if any of you would like to follow us. And through the analytics of those systems, we have about 80 views per month. And lastly, touching upon that assessment component, there are really 3 areas that we touch upon. One is that reflection with our student staff to get them critically thinking about the work that they did for their events, for their displays, getting them to think about what worked, what they could change next time. All of that is documented along with who attends our events in a Qualtrics survey that I designed. And we compile that at the end of the year for end of the year reports. And then we also give that information to incoming student leaders so they have an idea of what worked and what didn't work as they're going forward. Every year we do a mixed method assessment using quantitative and qualitative questions to really focus on the student experience, what challenges they face, are they happy, are they feel pride in coming to campus, and all of that is compiled into an executive report that is shared with all of the center students, faculty, and staff, as long with folks like Mel who transition that up the chain. And then lastly, we always reassess every summer if our events and displays were effective with our students, with our staff, and see if there's anything that needs to get changed. If nothing does, we continue to make those traditional events, and then anything that needs to be changed, we do. And lastly, we have been receiving S&A funding since 2006. That is way before my time, and that is the oldest folder I found in my office, so I think that information is accurate. And since 2013, which is when I somewhat started from temp to the position I'm in now, we were receiving $220,000 per year. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions at this time?
I don't have a question, but just to point out, I know, as Ashley pointed out, because she works closely with me in a number of areas for the students on the centers, that even the number of students served is more than what she has up there, because that's not including the number of students in crisis or distress that we refer for her and her staff to follow up, or the student conduct issues that they address. So that adds on top of the numbers they already have.
Thank you, Joey.
Absolutely.
Seeing no other questions, thank you for your presentation, and have a good rest of your evening.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you. Thanks, Mel.
Thanks.
All right. Further on in section 8, we're going to move over supplemental funding requests and move straight into sections for Part C, S&A fee discussion. Andy, I'll do this one to you for now.
Yes. The S&A fee. So what I was wanting to bring to the attention of the committee tonight, and I apologize, I'm a little under the weather, so if you can't hear me, just bear with me here. We need to look at if the fee needs to be increased CFO, Business Finance Committee, the trustees are all gonna want to know as we prepare going into March. So I wanted to provide the committee with a little bit of information to help with hopefully a vote tonight on whether or not we would need to increase it. I apologize, I have a small printout, I have it on the laptop here, I forgot we're on this thing. So if someone wants to see more additional detailed information, I have it, I can give that to you. But essentially, to try to make this as easy to understand as possible, this year, and a lot of it has to do with the student body, the influence of the student body for this fiscal year, our revenue is definitely up. Our expenses are static, meaning that they really aren't changing at all this year or next year. We're in our third year of the quadrennium funding cycle. Those base allocations are set and they do not change until, well, after next year. This committee won't have to worry about that. So revenues is up, expenses are static. Right now, the only expense that we could have a variable with or we could see fluctuate truly is just the supplemental funding part of it. That's really about it. Right now, if we were to stick at where we are right now with my projected revenue, total expenses, including the supplemental funding budget, we're on par to carry forward, close to $300,000 going into next year. These are estimates. We're about two-thirds of the way into the academic year, so I'm a bit more confident in those numbers. So having said that, there's two things. I'll have to present the same kind of information to the Business Finance Committee and the trustees. The argument would fall apart if I was to say we need to increase the S&A fee given what I'm projecting for our carry forward. That's kind of a hard argument saying, well, if you're going to anticipate over $250,000 carry forward, why would we want to increase that? That in combination with trying to not add more expenses to the students. All that being said, so ultimately what I'm hoping to have the committee vote on tonight, and my recommendation is to not have to increase the fee going into next year. We will leave it as it is. At this point, I don't know if we can, obviously if anyone has any questions or any additional detail, please talk.
Is there any minimum figure for carry forward that's expected of us each year?
There's nothing that they're asking that they want to see us carry forward. I think this is just due diligence and good stewardship with the funds that we will receive.
And then, when you say static, I'm assuming you're also calculating salary increases and wage increases over the next 2 years?
Correct.
And then the 15% decrease in tuition, is that gonna affect our S&A?
Right now, no. That's still being decoupled.
Okay.
What happens next year, we will cross that bridge when we come to it.
Okay.
Well, just a point of clarification on that, even on the legislative side, a decrease in the tuition doesn't mean you have to decrease the S&A fee. We just can't increase it by more than what we're increasing tuition by.
Okay, I knew there was some formula,
Yeah.
but yeah.
When it's connected, if it's not decoupled, if tuition goes up by 5%, we can only increase the S&A fee by 5%.
And are you assuming another growth in the student population?
From the sources and the folks that I've talked to, it would seem to be what we're looking at for this year's student body, and maybe a small increase going into next year.
And that's in your static calculation as well?
Correct.
And we're talking small growth in headcount.
Right, yeah.
So right now, you just are looking for a motion to keep the S&A fee at $232 a quarter? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, basically just, to just make sure there's no confusion. We just want to say, we are not requesting an increase in the fee.
With that, and again, just to clarify, it's really that if we were to have an increase, we would have to bring that forward to business and finance and and go through Board of Trustees, through the process that all the other fee requests do.
Right.
Similarly, it's a little bit different. It's really, they aim to bring it forward to the committee to be aware of, so that way if the committee does have any questions or is looking to increase, that we can get that information clarified with all of this.
So I can make a motion and not increase the fee.
The motion would be to keep the fee at the current.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to keep the S&A fee at its current state, no increase.
Motion's been made, is there a second? Richard seconds, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Vote carries. Alright.
The only other comment that I would put on here is, and again, Andy and me have talked about this, it's one that, this is something that can come up on a yearly basis, each committee has that decision. The only part that could impact where, in previous years, the committee has not been able to increase because it was coupled with tuition on those years, and there was no increase in tuition. So for those of you that have been on the committee in past years, that's why this discussion has not come up to the committee in some of those years.
Whoever's gonna be on the committee next year, I look forward to spending time, because next year's gonna be interesting.
Yes, it will.
The base funding, you're talking base funding request?
Base funding and then
right, with
the
the
fee
fee-based funding
discussion.
request, and we'll look at the percentage again, but right now, it's nice to have it just nice and clean.
Alright, so we're done with section 8, moving to section 9, other business communications received. I haven't received any communications. Seeing none, public comment, second call. Seeing no public comment.
As a reminder, I know it's on here, next week we're meeting back in this room, Black 137, for one more week, so just a reminder, please come here.
Thank you, Joey. Is there a motion to adjourn at this time? Jessica moves, is there a second? Mr. Dwyer seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Vote carries. Meeting adjourned at 6:19.
Come on, Robert's rules. Come on
Thank
now.
you all.
And your name tags to Renee.
Joey, do you know if anyone decided this week? Trying to figure out.
We have one
Rob,
presentation.
contact you.
Trying to figure out if it's-
Say, we're voting them off.
The week after. Is there
No
something-
more Rob Lane.
Is he actually gonna vote it on?
No.
Where-
It's, you don't automatically get kicked off. It's up to the committee to decide.
For a new
You got one to work.
That's
Video.
He works in Canada.
Preston
We
Housman?
have no program.
Oh, God.